His question was something around stress and burnout. Stress, burnout, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, all those kinds of things. Anxiety, you could say, from one perspective, is a breathing pattern, which you would have heard me say before. Another perspective of that is that anxiety is having many choices and not knowing what to choose or not wanting to choose. If you break it down, simplify it. You have lots of choices, so you're like, oh shit, I don't know which one to choose. And I don't know. So I'm like, overwhelming, so anxious. Stress is obsessively playing out a thought in the mind over and over again. Normally, the version of how it's not going to work, like how bad it's going to be. And thoughts cannot be compartmentalized. So our body and our mind and our emotions and our connection to something greater than body, mind, source, spirit, universe, whatever, like we are connected. You cannot compartmentalize one from the other. So if you think a thought, you will feel a feeling based on the thought, because the mind doesn't know the difference between the thought and reality, which is why visualization is so powerful. Stress, you could say, is us visualizing how bad it's going to be and practicing that, putting our focus into that over and over again. Therefore, we realize it, right? Make into our reality. So it's the same formula, but you take that and if you focus it on visualization or manifesting, part of manifesting, someone who's visual would picture it. They would see it, hear it, feel it, but it's the thing that you want rather than the thing that you don't want. So stress is, okay, we take, sometimes it's a certain situation and our nervous system is wired. First priority is survival. That's an ancient part of our brain, our nervous system, that is still existent within us today. Even though we don't need the protection mechanism, it is there. All information has to go through this filter first before everything else. And it goes, I don't know if I can trust this. I don't know if I'm going to survive it. This might be danger, right? So maybe you are in a situation where things are like high pressure and we look at it and stress as if we're playing out the worst case scenario. And then our body is responding, our emotions and our body respond as if that is the reality. Because remember, the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what we focus on, like visualize, see, hear, feel. That's why manifesting is so powerful, because the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what you're imagining. So if you imagine a lot of what you want, then you could say it comes true. So stress, if we're doing it in the mind, like thoughts cycling over and over again, I obviously get stressed a lot too. I've just learned some tools to manage it a bit better than I did some years ago. And I find that if it's happening on one level, let's say if it's happening on the mind, so it's like thoughts playing over and over and over and over again. So if I have some feelings and then my body's taking on certain kind of sensations, you can address it on any one of those levels. So a lot of times it might be more useful to make it tangible. And the most tangible out of those three, right, the mind, the emotion, the body, is what? The body. So then, for us, what we do, we get on the yoga mat, start to move, start to shift your breath, because your stress breath would be very different to when you're doing yoga and you're doing deep breaths. So it switches your body and your nervous system out of that stress, which is normally fight and flight, to a little bit more rest and digest. Now, it doesn't take away the situation if you're in a situation, but suddenly you have more, like you have tapped into more of your resources or resourcefulness, let's say. Your body is calmer, right? The stress, that tension is taken out of you because you've moved your body, yoga, whatever your movement is, ideally conscious. And you shifted your breath. So now your emotions are going to match that because you've moved your body. And because your emotions feel different, you might have a bit more space to think clearly. And having a bit of space internally to think clearly is useful in a stressful situation, because that is the time for us to get creative. But the part of us that is wired for survival is for fight or flight. That is not the time to get all expansive and creative. It's fight this thing or fucking run. Right? Or both. Which makes sense. But even though there isn't a saber-toothed tiger in your living room right now, our body still responds as if there's a saber-toothed tiger. And when it's fight or flight, the focus narrows in. And it's single focus rather than expansive. And all our resources, right, adrenaline pumping, so that we're getting ready for that fight or flight. And most of us are living in most of our day, most of our year, most of our life in fight and flight. That's the modern day life. Most of us are almost all the time in fight or flight. Our body doesn't get an opportunity to rest and digest. So for me, part of what is the work, the inner work, is despite the problem or the situation that is in front of you, whatever it may be, yes, you can acknowledge, okay, it's there or it's here, and I'm feeling these feelings, and my body's taking it on in these ways, and I'm having these thoughts. To cultivate a certain level of awareness, to train within us a certain level of awareness. Therefore, there is a sense of space between the thing, the problem, and you. Right? And as you can start to calm the nervous system down, you can start to create more space within yourself. Suddenly you can start to think a bit clearer. You can start to get more creative. Because the problems that we have, our worst problems, it's someone else's they just have for breakfast. So let's say maybe it's a bit more tangible like this. Let's say you're running business. And in your business, you have a set problem and you think, oh my God, this is it. It's like, this is going to kill a business. That's it. But if you brought someone like, I don't know, Richard Branson in, Richard Branson would just solve that problem. So it's not like the problem's going to kill you. It's just our ability to be resourceful. And we cannot be resourceful when we're stressed out, because you can't see wider focus. Even our blood vessels, right? They tend to open up, they're pumping blood, the heart's pumping, but everything's like starting to build up. It's cutting down digestion. Everything's getting ready to fight and flight. And at that time, you can't think clearly. You're like, run or what? What should I do? So deal with it on the level of the body. Okay, let me work this tension, this stress out of me first. Let me go for a walk. That's why walks are so powerful. Right, let me sit down and meditate. When the logical mind would be thinking, what are you doing sitting down and meditating? What are you doing freaking yoga? Yoga is not going to solve your business problem. Actually, it is. Years ago, I had a mentor that would say, a business guy, and you'd say, like, why bother meditate? What's all this meditation shit? Where you think you're going to sit there and like problem your meditation, but like a problem solution is going to fall in your lap? Your business is going to magically work? Actually, you know what? Yes. Because when I sit and meditate, and when I do my yoga and when I create space within myself, I can be creative. I'm not rushing frantically, just doing shit for the sake of doing stuff so I can be busy. And I'm actually doing the things that matter. And it comes from a clarity within rather than just trying to fill up space, trying to do something for the sake of doing it, which would actually make me more stressed out anyway. So there's nothing new, right, in our world, in this work. I've been saying this for almost 2 decades now. I'm not the only one who's been talking about it. A lot of people have been talking about it too. It comes back to the same thing, the slow, consistent way. This is where training, like having a solid foundation underneath you so that you gear yourself to step into the day in your best. So your worst can be your greatest gift for anyone facing something really challenging right now. If this could be your greatest gift, What could it look like? How would you approach it differently? What would be different? If what seems like your biggest problem right now could be your greatest gift, what would be different? And I'm talking internally, not externally. Part of our resourcefulness.